Yeah, it's kind of sad. Even, you know, the college loan killing the students. I really don't think college is what it used to be anymore. And
it's a waste of money.
Yeah,
it's a terrible. It's such a con game.
I agree.
Every time you give students a college loan, the university, surprisingly, raise their rates. They're more expensive than any other sector in America. Medical doctors don't raise their rates as fast. Insurance companies don't. Automobile companies don't. But the universities, because they have this guaranteed inflow of student loans, they have faculty members and administrators that get overpaid. They have affirmative action compliance officers. Yeah. They have entire departments of extremely well-paid bureaucrats at UCLA and USC to make sure that everybody's following the PC rules and nobody's speaking out of PC, politically correct language. And they go around, you know, looking and investigating. They're like minders, like Iran or like Iraq before Saddam Hussein fell. He had what people were called minders, M-I-N-D-E-R. So walk around making sure that you're doing the right thing and you're warned if you're doing something wrong. Well, we have that in our American university system. It's very expensive. It's kind of like what the Chinese communists are doing in China right now, except they're much more advanced than America.
I think we just all made Sally Mae rich, you know, and I think it's tragic. I had a friend who went to Stanford, you know, got her doctorate degree there, but she said she didn't actually learn anything from there. And she's conservative, and she said she had to pretend, you know, to get good grades.
Everybody has to, every conservative student, my advice is, just pretend and play the game.
They should.
Just pretend it's not worth it unless you don't care, and then go ahead and battle the administrators and battle. And I represent a lot of conservative students from schools from Humboldt College to San Diego State. As a lawyer, I do it for free, pro bono. And when they start getting bashed, I invite them to call me, and I have a number of lawyers that are prepared for free to support these students and go after the administration. And we've been winning to such an extent that when the university really goes out of its way to punish a conservative, they have to pay huge expenses after that. So we're right now winning that battle. Plus, Trump is changing the courts.
You're right.
And the courts are much more interested in free speech than under Obama.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Do you think college faculty members, you know, including professors, they lean left because they also get government handout, if you think about it?
Well, in a way. Again, you look at I always worry about a college student. I ask them, what's your major? If they say political science, I'm thinking, I laugh at them. Sadly, I was a history major. Same thing. It's functionally worthless. It's kind of fun, but it really doesn't advance great education. Plus, they're not even teaching the great books anymore. But if they're a biochemistry major, that's the one that I like. If they're going to medical school,
learning something.
That's a smart one. But if they're doing some social science, it's garbage. It's a waste of time. They're a dime a dozen.
Sociology.
And they don't get good jobs, actually, and it's propaganda. They go to professors that you might be studying Middle French language, but they wind up talking about how bad Trump is. Or you might take a course on American classics. No, it's how bad Trump is. And so the universities really have lost their integrity. There's very few universities you can trust your children with.
I think you are very sharp about what's going on in the college education. You know, I can't agree with you any more than that. But I mean, it's sad, and
well, parents ought to be very careful where they send their kids to. Sending your kids to Harvard may be a mistake.
Yeah, it's too expensive.
Sending them, well, besides, it's not
just left wing.
The return on investment. You know, the prestige is there, but the quality of Harvard's gone way down. Plus, they don't like Asians. And that's why,
you're right. You're right. Affirmative action. You know, they're so against it. Exactly. I agree with you. I mean, you're right.
Well, the Asians tend to be harder to propagandize. They tend to be not as amenable to the left-wing message. Plus, they're serious students.
Yeah, so I don't understand when there's Asian Americans who support affirmative action right now, because there has been so many. They have to get like 450 points more than.
It's a suicide pill they're taking. Yeah. An Asian, I've seen this before, and I've challenged them before. There's this one famous woman who is a lawyer, and she says, well, I couldn't have become a lawyer if I didn't go to UC Davis. Affirmative action got me into UC Davis. And I was with a friend of mine, now Judge Mark Kim, and we're having a debate on affirmative action. I said, well, Angela, you're the first Korean I've ever met that benefited from affirmative action. How did you do that? All the other Koreans I know got the grades and they earned it and they didn't need it. So that's part of the propaganda. There might be some dumb Asians that need it. I understand that. But affirmative action is inherently evil and racist. It's racist because basically those that work hard that have earned their way are punished. That's not the American way.
And actually, I don't hear a lot of Korean Americans going to these Ivy League anymore. Around me, it's very rare where you hear, oh, somebody got entered to Harvard. Somebody got entered to it. Well, I used to hear that a lot, but not these days.
It's a Jewish problem. This happened to the Jews in the 1930s. And the Jews were getting into Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and the academics. Oh my God, we got too many Jews here. What about our tribe? What about the WASPs? And the same thing. And the funny thing is and when you have an Asian that betrays their integrity, forget about their group, but their integrity, simply saying, well, affirmative action's good. And if they were honest, they'd say, yeah, we have too many Asians. If they would be honest.
They're saying that way.
Yeah, I think when they're saying that, they're at least being honest, but they're basically self-hate. Yeah. They hate their own community, and they should have no standing in the Korean American community.
And for me, I think young people becoming Democrats is because of the college education that they're getting,
no question.
The 4, 5,
peer
6
pressure.
years.
It's
and
peer
pressure too.
We just had a friend of ours who's Vietnamese, a daughter of a prominent Vietnamese politician in Orange County, going to UC Davis. And the first day of orientation, this is just a couple of days ago, saying you should be ashamed of your wealth, ashamed of your privilege, and ashamed of your race, and ashamed of your gender. In fact, we don't use pronouns anymore. We don't say he or she.
It's a Z, right?
Yeah. And so she comes back, she's 18 years old, and she says, this is a bunch of nonsense. Now, you will have some kids that knows it's nonsense. Her parents prepared her. And this is Davis. It's not like Harvard. It's a good UC school. Used to be. They're all pretty bad now. I know. But you got a lot of kids who are 18 that know nothing. And they're hearing smart professors, and they got into a UC school, and they got all these other kids that are cool, and they want to be cool. Oh, yeah, I got to hate white people. Okay. And I got to hate my parents. Okay. And I got to hate Thomas Jefferson. Okay. And I should be a little more open about my sexual interests. And so it's a vast propaganda machine where there's no chance to opt out. You don't get two points of view, you get one point of view.
They have to hate from George Washington all the way up to probably the 40th president, I would say, right?
No, yeah, to the 45th to Trump.
Right, all the way. So.
Well, it's sad, but in a way, it's very similar to North Korean propaganda. It's one point of view. You're given rewards if you agree. You're punished and marginalized if you disagree. We're returning to having black segregated dorms. I mean, that's something that's out of the 50s. We're returning, in some cases, Asian-only dorms. Well, what's an Asian? We don't have Asians in America. You have Koreans, Vietnamese, Hmong. You have everything in between.
They have those now, Asian-only dorms?
Yeah.
Why do they do that?
The universities are trying to encourage it. They want separation, tribalism, more tribalism.
I've never heard about this. This is crazy. Wow.
Well, don't be surprised, and they want young people to try more different sexual experiences. Well, how about not talking about it? You don't have to talk about it, for God's sakes. I think a teenager can figure that out, and they don't have to be told that they have to. A girl has to sleep with a woman. I mean, they don't have to be told this. If she wants to, that's her right. But you don't have to make it policy.
Yeah. To me, this left-wing party has become very scary. Personally, when I see all this, what's going on, even in Planned Parenthood, Project Veritas caught them selling, baby parts.
And yet they're punishing the filmmakers.
That's ridiculous. It's just
and they'll lose, but they're trying to put people that expose Planned Parenthood for selling baby parts.
And people don't know about this.
They're trying to put the people for exposing them and proving it out of the words of Planned Parenthood's top officials selling baby parts and making money enough to buy a Lamborghini, as one official said. And yet they're punishing the truth teller, the one that got the video.
And none of them got charged, right? The one who got caught in the camera. It's just crazy what's going on.
The DA in Orange County did get two companies that were making money off of selling that and got them prosecuted for selling baby parts, and they went out of business. So, I mean, there was some pushback, but the free speech is just outrageously being...
where my curiosity goes? I'm wondering where they're selling these baby parts, and I don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
What are they doing with these things?
Research.
It's just so scary.
Whatever that means.
You know, I have a friend, who was a former UCLA professor, Tim Grosclose. I don't know whether you know him or not. He used to be a professor of poli-sci, actually. Wow. But now I think he moved to George Mason because he wrote a book called Left Turn, meaning all mainstream media and the academia world, they lean left. Right. So he said he didn't have much friends, and he told me, I actually did an exclusive interview with him, and he told me, I don't know how much longer I can stay in this school in UCLA, and before I knew it, he was let go of that school.
Well, if he didn't have tenureship, he's expendable. And as soon as look, first of all, if you're male, that's dangerous. If you're white, very dangerous. If you're straight,
you're out.
You almost push yourself out at the edge of the. That's what Again, we're lucky if we get any of our folks in, but no, they have a very clever scheme of how they keep bringing in their left wingers into the university.
Do you consider this whole thing as like good versus evil sometimes?
I don't want to get to that point. I think it's smart versus dumb.
Okay, all right.
So I don't want to think that I have all the good stuff. I'm sure I make a lot. No, I make a lot of mistakes, errors of judgment. But I want to keep questioning the left and see how they support it and what is their fundamental beliefs. And I think they have a hard time defending. They would rather call you a racist than think about what they're defending.
I only asked this question because they seem to always ask that question to the right, wing party. So are the establishment Republicans finally all behind President Trump?
Yes. And here's the funny thing.
But how about Bill Kristol and
Bill Kristol is way out there, and he's supporting anybody against Trump.
Yeah, even a Democrat.
Yeah, we lost Bill for a generation, and I don't miss him. Sorry to say it, but he just got wrapped up into his own rhetoric. Yeah. No, I was at a meeting in Orange County where Donald Trump Jr. Spoke, and in this room was all the Orange County's longtime activists and participants and very successful businessmen. And I saw one after another that were very public how much they hated Trump, how embarrassed they were.
And Donald Trump Jr. was there?
Yes. They were all there. They were all clapping. And they're all showing support. Trump has solidified 90% of the Republican Party in California, which was really very hostile to him 4 years ago. They including me.
I know.
I was not a fan. I supported 5 people before
Cruz.
Trump.
Yeah.
I supported Scott Walker, Marco Rubio, Carly Fiorina, Ted Cruz, and probably some other guy. Chris Christie for a week. I mean, I couldn't see, but I've learned that Trump's rhetoric is kind of fun, maybe hurtful, but his actions. He appointed a better cabinet than Ronald Reagan did. He's got more done in 2 years than most presidents have gotten in 8. He has really taken government and has turned it around. And for every new regulation, he has now eliminated 20 regulations. He promised 2 to 1. Now it's 20 to 1. So there are so many. There's good things that are happening in the administration every single day. I can point to. That's won over 90% of the Republicans, including the middle of the road, including the moderates. They see a lot of value. It may be the courts, it may be their businesses expanding, it may be that there's more employed African Americans than ever before. Yeah. There's a whole lot of reasons to
media
like
don't
it.
want to talk about those.
Again, the left-wing media. Remember, there's multiple media.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, we don't have a lot of, a right-wing media. I mean, we have Fox on the TV, cable news channel.
Right.
But other than that, magazine, I think National Review, it's not that easy. You have to kind of search for it. So, some Trump supporters consider him one of the greats. You know, like he's on that line of, some even want to put him in the Mount Rushmore level, that he is just, because you have so much hostile people against him, especially the media, that it's amazing what he has achieved so far. Do you think he's on his way to be considered one of the greats?
I can't say that. He needs another term for us to find out. I'm more of a long-term kind of guy. He's made a lot of great starts, but the North Korean issue is not resolved. The China issue is not resolved. Iran is not resolved. And you can't resolve it overnight. I think he needs to get reelected. The courts haven't been completely reformed. The swamp hasn't been cleaned out. And so he's on the verge of making that, but he's got to get reelected.
Yeah. And North Korea actually shot some more missiles today. What do you think about North Korea? Do you think Trump is handling this the right way, or?
I don't know. He's using two mechanisms, brute force and sugar. So he's offering a lot of sugar to Kim's ego. At the same time, he can shut him down even more so, and maybe even consider a boycott where nobody can go into their ports or not. And he's actually considering that in Venezuela right now. So he looks at all the options. So he doesn't try just being happy all the time, but he has some real power at the same time. So it looks like the harvesting is bad in North Korea. Starvation is going to go up. Well, in a communist...
Because the sanctions are still intact.
Oh, more than ever. And so they're hurting. And now the Chinese are hurting. And now we're seeing their economy slow down, and the slowest it's been, according to them, in 11 years, but maybe even worse than that. So Trump is pushing very hard, but using diplomatic, non-military ways of getting that resolved. Is it working? It's too early to tell.
Do you believe North Korea will give up their nuclear weapons?
Probably not. They won't give it up unless they're forced to. Okay. I mean, look, when you're dealing with a gangster, and he's lived in the third generation of gangster land, they pretty much understand their only relevance is having the biggest gun. They're not going to give it up because that's their only relevance. The only way I think we can do it is by having a regime change. And you get a regime change when things get really tight and uncomfortable in the government. And if somebody finally assassinates Kim, that might be our opportunity. And Kim knows every day he's always worried that one of his guards is going to shoot him.
I bet, yeah. So probably that might be something that Trump administration might be secretly wanting.
I don't know if they'd ever even admit that. But that's an option. And if they don't say it, everybody's thinking it. It'd be nice to get rid of this bastard Kim.
Okay. So we had deadly mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. At least 31 killed, I think, just now in U.S. weekend mass shootings. What do you think about this whole thing? The left wing and the mainstream media is trying to portray this as a gun control issue.
They always do that. Stephen Scalise, just a couple of years ago, was a U.S. congressman, and an old white guy with a semi-automatic weapon shot a bunch of Republican congressmen.
He was a Bernie Sanders supporter.
And very hardcore. A couple of weeks ago, at a military installation, at an ICE installation in Oregon, an old white guy had a bunch of fire bombs and a gun, and he attacked it, and he was shot and killed. And so this guy that in Dayton, Ohio, he had no manifesto except he was a crazy left-wing lunatic, green New Deal kind of guy, and he kills his own sister. So you're trying to find a commonality. The left wants everybody to believe it's a bunch of young, angry white supremacists. There is no white supremacy.
I've never seen one in my life.
You will not see one. There's no great publication.
Probably very few. They're talking about 0.001%. Like it's a mass.
Well, when you're talking about 300+ million people, inevitably you're going to have a couple of dozen whack jobs, and the whack jobs can do a lot of damage.
A lot of damage.
But it means more than ever you got to be able to, look. Every society that's free also has danger. You won't find a lot of guns in China because they will ban it, restrict it, and control it. And that's always true in totalitarian countries. So in a country where weapons are easier to get, well, you have a duty to protect yourself. And it's too bad at that Walmart there wasn't enough people carrying weapons
somebody to shoot back,
protect themselves.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, this Ohio gunman described himself on social media as a pro-Satan leftist who wanted Joe Biden's generation to die off, hated President Trump and law enforcement, and hoped to vote for Senator Elizabeth Warren for president. How come the media is not running this?
And you know what? They aren't, but you are, and you are media, and that to me is the real tell, because that's public information. But they're not. That ruins their idea. They want to see that there's every single shooter is a white supremacist, and it's not true. We had a period where we had young Muslims that were shooting and killing and stabbing along the way, and they kind of inspired each other. Every time there was one, there'd be two or three others. That's kind of died down. I think that whole era is over. But they're hoping, the Democrats are hoping desperately there's more copycats. They really liked this murder.
They like these. It seems like they get excited about it.
They enjoy it, and they're sending all kinds of news crews. It's a strange, cruel fascination they have. They want more because they think it hurts Trump, and they're badly mistaken.
The impression I get whenever I see these mass shootings, it's all over the news. It seems like they're excited about something. I don't know what they're excited about, but I get that kind of.
Well, it hurts Trump. Anything that hurts Trump, it's worth the price. It's worth the price, and it's a strange behavior.
So when Steve Scalise, he was a majority whip, right? When he got shot, almost died.
Yes.
And the guy who tried to kill him was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and right now we have an Elizabeth Warren supporter. How come there is no outrage among the Republicans using the same card and saying, hey, look at these crazy left-wing nuts jobs that you guys have?
Just because he supported Elizabeth Warren and hated Joe Biden doesn't mean that there's a whole new group of
So that means Republicans are always trying to play it the right way.
Well, I won't say that. That's too self.
But the Democrats don't say that. They always blame Trump.
That's self-serving. I think most people, Republicans, moderates, and reasonable people say the guy's a whack job. He liked Elizabeth Warren. Big deal. This guy from Texas, he's a whack job. He didn't like immigrants.
Okay.
That's not a trend either.
But for instance, if this Ohio gunman or this Texas gunman said he's a huge Trump supporter, the left wing would run with that for the rest of this month at least.
They would love it. They would love it. And the guy in Texas that was bombing people, and this was the thing, he would be bombing a family and he was black. I mean, you can't tell who's going to be the mass murderer because it's basically it's a mental illness problem. It's not political.
You're right.
We have what we have in the homeless communities. It's mental illness. It's not lack of housing.
I think it's a mental
Anybody
illness
that says it's lack of housing is lying.
It's a drug issue.
It's a
you mean the homeless? Are you talking about the homeless?
It's like a spectrum.
Yeah.
You got totally schizophrenics, forget the drugs, schizophrenics with drugs, and hardcore drug addicts. And the drug addicts will make you psychologically impaired. So the vast majority, 80%, are it's mental and drugs. And again, you have that along with these people as well.
Exactly.
So it's a mental health issue. In Colorado, they had a guy that shot a bunch of kids.
Oh, you mean that in the theater?
Yeah. No. That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Come on, keep it in the last 6 months. And then the Democrats had this big rally against guns. And students started walking out. It turns out the student or the young person that was shooting these people in Colorado was a transvestite. He wanted, he was upset with his own sexual identity, and that was his struggle, and he took it out by shooting people. So he would, what is that? Is all transvestite serial murderers? I don't think so. And so the gun people came down, and anti-gun people said, and people walked out one after another. It's mental issue, and they started saying that it's mental illness, and most Americans know that. So when they try to make it politicized, it becomes like a bunch of vultures around a dying body. The Democrats and the media are like vultures. Oh, we got a great story here. It's all Trump's fault. People don't buy it. And that's why they're going to lose in 2020. They don't buy the lies.
So, we see all this. The media is left. The academia whole world is left. College students left. You have all these things, who is so upfront. Hollywood is left. Tech left.
Right.
So you said that. Do you think California has to implode first to go to the other direction?
I think there has to be a serious economic shift. And when California runs out of money, that's when it will implode. Okay. And right now, they're enjoying the wealth they're getting from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is literally paying half the state budget. That 40,000 people are making so much money, they don't care.
I have a lot of friends there, and they said it's crazy too. And John Lee is one of the few candidates who is trying to stop this tide. I don't think anybody can stop it completely, but he's one of the ones.
No, it's a symptom. If we get a John Lee elected, California takes a step in the right direction. If John Lee doesn't get elected, we just keep going into more rats, more typhus, more diseases, where policemen are down there getting bit by rats. There's Dr. Drew, who's a famous medical doctor. He's predicting that we will be seeing an outbreak of the bubonic plague. That's something we haven't seen since the 12th century.
Yeah. Dr. Drew, by the way, he used to work for CNN, but he talked about Hillary having health issues and he got kicked out.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just crazy what's going on there. And are you also familiar about the relationship between Korea and Japan becoming very hostile?
Oh, yeah. You know? It's sad. These are allies that their bigger fear is China and North Korea. Yeah. But there's a historical reason for that. My wife's from Korea, from North Korea.
Yes.
And what the Japanese did, it was very fresh and recent. A lot of Koreans are alive that remember the Japanese oppression. That's what we celebrate August 15th. I mean, it's, by the way, it turns out to be, with my Indian friends today, they're talking, their national celebration for independence is August 15th. So Korea and India celebrate it by coincidence. No, there's a lot that the Japanese, and I believe Japanese and the Germans and now the Russian government, I mean, they have to make apologies.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you do that. I don't know if you can blame a Japanese baby that was born last week, you know, for the sins of their grandparents or their great-grandparents. But but the history has to be honest, and the Japanese have been cooking the books on history, and I don't like distorting history. Anybody, including the left or the right or anybody, I love history. I read history. I'm skeptical because I want to see who's writing the history to see what their biases are.
I'm always skeptical too.
So I understand hostility, but that is an emotional issue. The geopolitical issue is North Korea with their nuclear weapons that could go haywire, with the cannons that they have in the mountains pointing at Seoul. That is a real life problem. Everything we could see in Seoul could be gone in 15 minutes. Everything.
So next year, your wife, Michelle Steele, is running for Congress.
Yes, in Newport Beach.
Newport Beach. What do you see? How do you see her chances winning? It's a very important seat.
They're realistically good. We have 7 seats that Republicans have lost. Of the 7, Newport Beach is the best Republican territory because it has 8% more Republicans than Democrats. So the numbers are good. Secondly, Michelle's been elected in that territory 4 times with over 63% of the vote. So she's known. Thirdly, she's the current supervisor for 2/3 of the district.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Fourthly, 15% of all the voters are Asian American. A lot of people don't know that. We've got a huge Vietnamese, Korean, and Chinese populations in that district. It's also an older district, so they're more conservative. Even the nonpartisan voters are. So the Democrats are going to have a tough time keeping it.
Okay.
And Michelle just focuses. She's getting a lot of her support from Koreans, not just in Orange County, but in Los Angeles, in Virginia, all over the country.
And she raised record $200,000 in downtown LA.
She raised $540,000 in 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it was a lot of work.
And you think Young Kim also has a good shot?
She has a great shot. She won the election 2 years ago
I know.
by 14 points. 2 weeks later, she lost it.
I've never seen anything like that.
She lost by a tiny fraction. And so
ballot harvesting, right?
Yeah, ballot harvesting, Democrats, well, the mountain of money, the green wave, not the blue wave.
Okay.
That wave won't be around. And
because it's going to be focused on the presidential, that's why.
That's right. All the money's going to be in Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That's where your TV sets are going to blow up with too many commercials.
You're right. You know, back to John Lee and Lundquist. You know, Lundquist said about the homeless issue that she's going to spend more money about it. I mean,
you know who gets the money? When they say spend more money, it means hire more government social workers and get $100,000 a year plus benefits plus retirement. It won't. None of that money. It's like the money that went to Puerto Rico. Remember, billions went to Puerto Rico. More money went to Puerto Rico than the rest of the hurricane states in the United States. That money disappeared. And Puerto Rico is run by Democrats, and billions have disappeared. There's going to be investigation and prosecutions for years. And the same thing, Lundquist, you know, for her, she'd never made a dime in her life, never had a private sector job, never signed the back of the front of a payroll check. She always signed the back. So she is a typical socialist thinking, government can solve everything. All she wants to do is hire more social workers so they can get in an office behind a computer screen and write papers about it. The real answer are these Christian nonprofits. The real answer are people, nonprofits that actually work with them, but mostly taking care of the mentally ill and giving them asylum. Yeah. And Democrats are afraid to say that. I'm not. They need asylum. They need to be put in places where they can't hurt themselves.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
And it's cruel. It's cruel for people like Lindquist to say we're going to give them more. Let them live on the street, because it's a terrible life. They die early, they die violently, they die miserably. And many of these people ought to be given protection and be put in special places where they're protected and they're given meals and good medical care and they're not sleeping with rats. And sadly, Lindquist is one of those, they're homeless, they have rights, let them stay there. That's bad thinking. What it does is it spreads disease, not just physical disease, but a mental disease that we can learn to live with these vagrants on the street.
Okay.
We shouldn't learn to live with them.
All right, okay. I forgot to ask you one question regarding the Russia, since it's such a huge thing that has been dragged on since 2015-16. So the mainstream media and the Democrats claim that the server, John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta, and the DNC were hacked by Russians, right? According to them, hackers. But Julian Assange, and so this is WikiLeaks, revealing all these contents. But Julian Assange himself, the WikiLeaks founder, he said it wasn't Russians. He pretty much implied that it's from an insider. And he said he even put a $20,000 compensation reward money when Seth Rich got killed in Washington, D.C. And many people think that this is some kind of conspiracy. We don't hear from mainstream media trying to dig this up. So they're basing this whole premise that we have this Irvine company named CrowdStrike.
Yes.
It's a private, security company.
Right.
So they were the one who studied these computer servers, and they came to conclusion that it's hacked by Russians. But if you see the board members in CrowdStrike, I think Eric Schmidt was there. Eric Schmidt is the one who wanted to be the campaign manager for Hillary, as far as I'm concerned. And the board members there seem to all lean left.
There is no hard evidence by any reputable agency proving that it was Russian hacking. And it's a theory that cannot be proved. And that's become like one of the talking points of the Democrats. Nobody challenges that. Oh, yeah, it was hacked by the Russians. Really, who was it? When was it? Mueller never found out. Mueller, with tens of millions of dollars, with 20 lawyers, with dozens and dozens of FBI agents and 2,000 subpoenas, he never got to the bottom of that. So until they can prove it, you cannot believe it.
Yeah. So when I watch like CNN, MSNBC, or these three major networks,
you really put yourself through a lot of punishment.
When they're asking these questions, I mean, they don't even ask these questions. So do they have some kind of like a secret handshake saying, "Hey, don't ever raise that issue"? Well, because Democrats are the mainstream.
There is a herd mentality. And once in a while, you'll hear somebody on CNN or MSNBC go out of school.
A little bit.
And they're immediately punished. And they're attacked by their colleagues. And once in a while, those are fun, because you'll watch it on another channel when you see the guy says, well, Trump's not that bad. What do you mean he's not? How could you say that? And then when you're out of school, when you don't use the politically correct language, there's terrific punishments. Plus, it hurts your career. It hurts your next job. It hurts your reputation.
So do you think John Durham and John Huber, who's investigating this whole thing, FBI, the spying thing, all that, do you think they're going to get to the bottom of this?
I hope so. I mean, we can only hope. Again, trying to trace a hack is in the world of the internet is very, very difficult. The real key is, why was John Podesta, his password was password.
Yeah.
He asked for
That's how they found out.
I mean, John Podesta is as corrupt as they come, but his brother, who was a business partner of Paul Manafort, is walking away loose and free. He committed the same stuff that Paul Manafort did. Manafort's in solitary confinement, but Podesta is out, having a cappuccino.
It's just corrupt to the core. Yeah. Any last words for our viewers? Any advice for them to get more involved in politics?
Well, I believe that the Republican Party's future is with Korean Americans and Asian Americans in California.
Actually, they're doing so well, right? Asian Americans in California.
It's the fastest growing minority, and they won't be much of a minority at the rate that they're growing. Right now, Asian American voters make about 17% of all voters in California. African Americans was 6%, now it's moved to 5%. Latinos are moving from 28% to 30%. The Republican future is with the values of Asian Americans. And why? The values we know. Education is primary. No matter what, no matter how rich or poor you are, education's number one. The families last longer and the marriages last longer in the Asian communities. They're much more religious. Democrats are secular. They don't like religion. They don't like, Jews don't like going to temple in the Democrat Party. So if we see an Asian that is much more religious, also Asians have beautiful homes, better homes than the average Caucasian. People don't know that.
Even the unemployment rate, they're lower, right?
Oh, it's almost non-existent. Asian Americans have better, stronger families. So without the discontent that you'll find in many broken American Caucasian families. So they're really the ultimate logical successor for Republicans. So there's a huge opening. We now have our vice chair of the party is Peter Ko, a Chinese immigrant, from the mainland China. The National Committee woman is Harmeet Dhillon, a Sikh, a Punjabi from India, who's a brilliant lawyer, civil rights lawyer. And so the party is really open. Remember, half of our elected officials in Orange County are now Asian Americans.
Yeah.
So there's a much better future for what you believe in the Republican Party. But not only that, you're not joining to support them, you're joining to become a leader. There's tremendous opportunities to basically shape and become a leader. Try to become a leader, the Democrats, not a chance. They've already got it encrusted. They've got it, it's too crowded. You just can't move around.
You're right. Well, Mr. Steele, it's an honor to have you here. We always wanted to have you here. We are so grateful for you to share your knowledge and your insight.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. It was great it was a compelling interview of every subject.
We would like to have you more often.
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. Our show is not about left or right. It's about right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.